coffee. So good morning, Dr. Brad.
Hi, Kurt.
Now look, so Brad is looking so dapper. I had to go clean up. I had to shave, make sure my hair is a little bit better because we're put a white shirt on because Brad's looking so hot lately and
Oh my.
gentlemanly and respectable and such. And then I went on a TV show yesterday and I'm like, oh my God, I look very close to a guy living under a bridge. I better, I better clean up my act a bit.
That's it. You're looking very sharp.
I thank you. I thank you. If I could just lose the next 15 pounds and I could be back to my previous ego satisfying appearance.
There you go.
Anyway, we were just talking, as we want to do, because Brad has always got some damn idea he's been pondering over the past few days, because we only get to meet on weekends and nights. So, Brad, you said we needed to.
There was some interesting posts that were placed that I've been noticing this conversation occurring among the right-wing people that I talk to. And I really regard them as centrists more than right-wing, but I think that the general polity would call them to be right-wing. And among these conversations is one that Christianity won't work because it's intrinsically flawed, because it's too much servile and excessively forgiving. That was one conversational strain. The other one was smart people are attempting to create a new religion for Western civilization, I suppose. And I'm like, well, my response to this is that this conversation has occurred over the last 2,000 years, and the Catholic Church settled it down by political Christianity through the church. And Christianity has solved the problem of religion, and it's just a matter of integrating it in natural law as the Catholic Church attempted to do, and we have finally accomplished. So that we may settle our differences between people in a civil manner. You would say in markets for everything.
So I've said before that sciencing religion was the hard problem of social science. All these philosophers sent all this problem on truth. It took me a freaking year, right?
It's not so bad.
In retrospect, I spent a year on it and I was like, okay, I solved this. This wasn't all that hard. I have the value of standing on the shoulder, the virtue of standing on the shoulders of giants. But I was pretty proud of myself, to be honest with you. It was not like I was not, but ethics was pretty much almost solved before I got to it. Truth was, they'd pretty much given up on it. And so solving truth wasn't that hard. Once you understand the grammars, you're like, okay, I see where Doolittle got all this stuff from. Right? But religion was the hard problem because it's very, we are the fish swimming in the water that you always talk about. And we have this obsession with the Abrahamic religions, which is natural for fish swimming in the water of Abrahamic religions. But they're just one experiment in the vast number of experiments that put out there. And so I think that there's one virtue of Christianity. One is that everything good in Christianity existed in Europe beforehand. And I can defend this with extraordinary detail if someone can follow me through the story. And that all Christianity did was make the kind of ethics European ethics that were practiced by the middle and upper classes available to the lower classes in terms that they can understand and with incentives that would actually provide them to have less licentious behavior and more moral behavior. But to say that Christianity did anything other than that, I'm pretty sure I can say no.
All
If
right.
we talk about natural, what you and I have talked about in the sense of the church succeeding, is that by the time we get to the 1200s, with the restoration of Greek reason and the second counter-revolution by the church, which was Aquinas, he's saying, shit, this whole natural law thing of the Greeks turns out to be true. How can I unify this restoration of Greek and Roman knowledge with the faith? And he did it because it was already in the faith, because the faith is just Europeanism with Semitic storytelling. In other words, even Jesus is a counter reaction against Europeanism within Semitism, right? So he's just trying to say, we have to stop being primitive, and we have to learn from these other people, right? It's the same, it's like, well, I mean, where did Jewish law come from? It came from the fact that they observed that the Greco-Roman system of law was more effective than their mythicism, and so they went back and went into their history and dug up some of the old tribal laws and recreated it as Judaism, right? So there's nothing good in Christianity that wasn't there before. It's just that Christianity made it accessible made an aristocratic value system. It's important. Christianity made the European aristocratic value system accessible to people who had no aristocracy. They didn't have the abilities, they didn't have the incentives, they didn't have the resources, they didn't have the family, they didn't have the culture, they didn't have the physical prowess. They certainly didn't have, because they're all slaves and women, right? They didn't have anything aristocratic. And this is important because Western civilization's virtues are all aristocratic virtues. It's just that Christianity made them available to the lower classes. And so I have this beautiful little chart here that I want to show you after you give your what must be some sort of rebuttal or comment.
Right. I would say this is an interesting statement you made, and I think it's true. And it occurs to me that what Christianity allowed to happen was aristocratic leaders for the lower classes and an institution within which to frame it.
Right.
And they did not have that before, but by being treated as slaves.
They were treated as domesticated animals because
Yes.
that's what Indo-Europeans did, is domesticate animals. And they looked at the people they conquered. Remember, the Greeks are conquerors, right? Just the Romans are conquerors. The Indo-Europeans are conquerors. They treated their conquerors as another domesticated animal because by comparison, they were not domesticated animals. They needed to be domesticated. And this is very similar to white man's burden, which is a continuation of the Aryan initiative. And so this is why you'll find historians prior to World War I saying Christianity is simply a vehicle for Aryanism. In other words, it's a vehicle for justifying conquest. And so Christianity became, in the age of European ascendance, an excuse for the Aryan expression that was already extant in the aristocratic, military, cultural, legal, and other general pagan traditions that had preceded Christianity by millennia.
So in that, I regard you as having agreed with me, and I agree with you.
Yeah, I think so. I'm like, I don't know. Brad's usually got something in there that I've overlooked, overstated, understated, missed something.
Or no,
So,
no, it's more like the lily pad that you skip to get to the one you're on.
okay. So, so
That you presume was self-evident.
yes,
I merely articulate that which you presume to be self-evident and cause you to articulate it again.
which is a funny thing, I said this morning. I don't know if you saw my Twitter about this, but I I've been working with I've been testing different AIs, right? And what I've been testing them the past couple of days with, can you help me write this stuff, right? Right? Can you give me advice on it? It's phenomenal. And I said, well, you're sort of like Dr. Brad, except that you're actually available 24 hours a day. Right. I mean, and I wrote that, I put that in a Twitter post. It's kind of weird. I mean, I love this thing. And I was working on what you're simply saying is, it's saying, look, you need to work on transitions between topics. Is you don't necessarily, I, Kurt, expect the reader to see the natural consequence between the first set of principles and the second. And it says you probably should give me four bits of advice, and that was one of them.
That's it.
I had to explain to him that there's a big difference between the pamphlet and the science and the law. And I'm like, we can't, we're not trying to duplicate the science here. We're trying to reduce it to something that you can use for a quick reference rather than pick up the fucking tome that is, a competitor to the, what's the dictionary? I've got the dictionary over there on the stand there, the Oxford unabridged dictionary, right? And so, I was like, the work in the science feels a little bit like the unabridged dictionary when people really just want Webster's to do the kind of most work other than research. So it helped me quite a bit. Anyway, so I guess we're sort of in agreement here, which is really good. Although it takes away some of the fun of having a debate about the matter, right? Which, we almost need an antagonist. And so I'm still of the opinion that Jefferson was correct, and that Christianity as a philosophy is compatible with the Western tradition, which is multiple heroes, basically. Because we have heroes, we have demigods, and we have gods, right? And beyond the gods, there's something else out there that, right? But it's this hierarchy of powers. And my complaint, as you know, about Christianity is actually the Abrahamic method of deception that carries Christianity. It's not anything else with it. I mean,
Right.
I just object to the introduction of the feminine Semitic method of lying as a means of producing a religion, which is an objection to theology rather than, theology replacing philosophy, right? I mean, it's really that criticism. So, I mean, I consider myself a Christian in the sense that I understand, the teachings of Jesus Christ, or Jesus of Nazareth is how I should probably say it as a humanist, right? But I have my real issue is the feminine Jewish Abrahamic Marxist sequence of seditions that are really warfare against men. But in the Jewish context, they were warfare, and the Semitic, the Jewish context in particular, the broader Semitic context in general, are simply revolts against the innovation of the Indo-Europeans and frankly, the superiority of the Indo-Europeans. And it's just a counter-revolution, as I see it, and this desperate attempt to hold on to this.
Wait. I would say I would term it as a reaction as opposed to a counter-revolution.
Yeah. Well, what's the difference? Okay.
Well, this just to fall into the to use the same lexicon as the Marxists use.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
That just so that we understand each other.
Yes.
because they like to frame it as revolution. It's like, no, it's just reaction. And they talk about that in the term of their revolutionary sequence, that here's how it goes. And it's like, yeah, you're not the revolutionaries, you're reactionaries.
I was thinking, I tend to think I understand, I agree. I just want to explain that I tend to think the British, the English invention of modernity and the French, German, Russian, Jewish, twice, and subsequent worldwide counter enlightenments against it, which I find is fairly interesting, is that the Enlightenment gets called this European phenomenon, and it's really a counter enlightenment that's the European phenomena, while the Enlightenment is exclusively Anglo, or at least
It's
phenomenon.
yeah, it's island versus continent.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to show you this lovely chart that was very popular uh, earlier in the last century. It was distributed by Rand McNally, um, and I'm going to share my screen here if I can figure out how to do so. What is that one? What is that thing saying? No, I don't need you to do that. Yes, I can make you go away. So I'm going to show you a histomap of religion. Some of you people have seen various imitations of this because he started a trend with this line of imagery. All right, so realize this thing's an enormous poster, right? Do you fold that poster?
Yes.
So I can zoom in on it, right? If
Oh, that's quite interesting.
I can zoom in on it, but I mean, in general, I'm only trying to get across what you can probably see at this level of resolution. And he got this is
That's quite
pretty
interesting.
brutal. It's pre-war intellectual honesty that is a little offensive to
What
the
year is it?
globalist. Sorry.
What year is it?
No, I don't know the answer to that.
Oh,
It seems to me it's war era, but it might actually be earlier.
okay.
Alexa, when was John B. Sparks born and when did he die?
Good morning, Kurt. From Wikipedia.org. John Sparks, August 30th, 1843, May 22nd, 1908, nicknamed
Okay.
Honest John, was an American politician who was the 10th governor of Nevada.
Wow.
That's the wrong guy. uh, Sparks. Histomap. (1931).
That makes sense.
So this is his work is extremely anti-communist, which is funny. Anyway, which is obvious at the time, but this is put out in 31. So anyway, so he says, what's his scope and purpose? What's the time scale and color scheme?
Right.
But it's really obvious. He starts out with these basic origins of religion.
Right.
One critic has said this yellow one actually is later. In other words, this comes in later. I'm not sure that's true.
Right.
I'm not sure that is true, but I have heard that criticism. So you have ancestors to worship tribal gods and divine kings, nature spirits, and fertility cults. So you really have the magical ones right here and the anthropomorphic ones. And so you can just see how this develops over time. And what they're trying to do is show you by the width of the color band, how this stuff, how widespread it was.
Okay.
And what you'll see here, of course, is that we see the invention of Egyptian religion first, right? And not long after the philosophies of the Chinese, but the Egyptian religion is really where most of this comes from. And the Aryan religions, not long after, which consists of the Greek religion, the Persian, the Hindu, which gives rise to all these.
Right.
And then you see from the Egyptian and somewhat from the tribal gods of the Nasser Jews, you see the Judaism,
Right.
and then Islam, of course. They've got, this is not quite right. Islam is actually a heresy of Christianity, but at the time this was written, I'm not sure they understood that. So Islam is in the wrong place on this chart.
Close.
But it's close enough.
It's next door to where it should be.
Right. If they just move this yellow band over
Yes.
here, you got it about right. So, and this is, of course, this purple is the Jesus of Nazareth, right? So they're saying he's a reaction to the Aryan cultures and the Jewish cultures.
Right. The intersection there.
Intersection there. And so what you look at across this is you see the age of transformation here, right? You see this extraordinary age where all these religions are brought about.
Yes.
And historians of religion, and I use the term as well, calls this the axial age. And so what happens back in where's 1200 BC? Somewhere in here. What happens in here is the collapse of the ancient world, right? The Bronze Age collapse. And so this stuff starts to take place when we recover from the Bronze Age collapse, and you see that most of it's finished by the time of 600 AD. So between 500
The
BC.
Roman Empire failure.
Sorry?
By the Roman Empire failure time.
Right.
The Western Empire, I should say.
Now, what I want to show here, which I think is important, is the evolution along this green one of nature and nature spirits,
Right.
versus all the rest.
Okay.
All right. This is interesting. Fertility cult is understandable. They burn out because the feminine can't survive, right? Magic and fetishism, well, there's still a little bit of that in Africa, but it really burns out because it can't survive the knowledge produced from trade.
Right.
Totemism burns out, right, pretty early because it can't compete with these more advanced religions, right, which are the ancestor, tribal god, and nature spirit.
Or more closely correspondent.
I think it is that they're more allows. These things tend to be very localized, and these things tend to be enable political.
Social scale.
Exactly, social scales. So I just want to go down this nature worship thing, and I want to say the importance of worshiping something real. Right, the real important is the importance of worshiping something real, and
that's why I say correspondence.
Yes, you've become a really good philosopher over time. It's amazing.
Thank you, Kurt.
It was actually someone said that the other day. We've heard this before, but the other day it's like, this Natural Law Institute people. This is like the best content on the internet. I'm like, well, of course it is. I don't want to be an asshole, arrogant, but if you look at
wait, that's awesome. Let me finish. It's like I don't want to be arrogant, but I am forced. My hand is forced.
I admit to being an arrogant and free prick. I have no problem being a elitist. Anyway. And partly it's being reinforced by the fact that everybody ridicules me for not recognizing and admitting it. So I mean, what
Oh
am I going
my.
to do? Well, and
It's
you
a
get to,
humility.
and you can tease me too because you're almost as bad, right?
I hide it a little better,
You hide
perhaps.
it better than I do, right? I mean, that's all. So what we get is the early Egyptian religion, which of course there's a lot of reasons for their earliestness, but you get the religions of the Aryan culture, and what's important is that you get it regionalized by the Indo-European expansion
Yes.
into the Greek, the Persian, and the Hindu chains, which eventually becomes the Buddhist chain, obviously. But I want to watch something very important here is that early Greek religion and its related philosophies, we're going to follow this. Oh, dang it. What's the problem here? I can click on it, right? Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Right. So I can,
that's nice.
that's why this thing's 20 megabytes, right? I mean, it's a freaking JPEG. So I mean, whoever made this is a saint. You can see from the wrinkling.
I want you to share this in the links, okay?
Yes, I will happily share it. Yes, I can do that.
That was for everybody that's paying attention to this cast. It was a public service thing that I just did.
You're such a sweet man. Early Greek religion was a mythology with little moral or ethical content. The rise of Athens, Greek nature, gods humanized into the Iliad and Odyssey of Homer. It's important because that was the Bible of the Greco-Roman world, right? The Bible is an attempt, a systematic and organized attempt by the Nicaeans to replace the Bible of the Greco-Roman world of the aristocracy with the Semitic of the peasantry, right? So out of this, we get all the related philosophy, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, the idea of good, and of course, natural law. The Stoics, the Epicurean, and the skeptics try to find natural morality. Platonius's doctrine of emanations, Neoplatonism, the integration of the Hebrew, Arab, and well as Christian philosophers, leading into scholasticism, the rediscovery of Aristotle. Make sure this what's curious when he says this happens. Yeah, 1200 is right. The rediscovery of Aristotle, and then comes along Aquinas, and this turns into humanism.
Yes.
Now, I want to make it clear that this is the thread that's consistent in the European tradition. It's
The
never.
green one.
Was that my sorry?
That green one.
Right, that green one stays the same throughout, and it runs in parallel. And to some degree, these are class religions. They stay extant, right? Then you get the Luther
Yes.
and Reformation,
Yes.
but you have Thomas More and Shakespeare. One of the things that bothers me people railing against white teaching of Shakespeare is they don't realize it's part of our religious heritage, and I don't secular religious heritage, and I don't think they understand it that Shakespeare is basically creating a secular humanist Bible in poetic form, in poetic literary form. Right? So you have Spinoza teaching intellectual love of God, etc. So this is a very humanistic continuation of the Greek method. And then you have the related philosophies that emerge. And of course, you have this heresy over here that is Marx and Engels and Lenin.
I like that it's red.
What? Well,
I like it that it's
you're
in
not
red.
you're the first person. Everyone says that who sees this chart and has any knowledge of history says it's pink because it's red. And there's something else that's okay. Where does it go in here? It's over here. It follows with this pink, right? State worship. So
Where,
basically, he's
where, where,
saying,
where?
what?
Where's the state worship?
This category of religions ends up in state worship,
Okay, I see,
right? So what he's saying is tribal gods, right, persist, right? Tribal gods and divine kings. That history ends in, Napoleon, Hegel, the philosophy of war, Nietzsche fascism, Nazism, imperial Shinto, and it ends up in state worship, right? Which I'm not. I'm kind of trying to get to class religions here, but anyway, you end up with the pink being here with communism, and it's also pink here, which is state religion. And I don't
Right.
remember, does that make sense? I don't remember
I
if he,
understand that.
I don't remember if he states it here, but I know that I've heard elsewhere of his saying, well, they're basically the same,
They are the same.
right? So
It
he
says
could,
at the bottom line there, it says stripped of its religions to hit the bottom of that pink you're on. Stripped to its essentials itself to be a police state aimed
Yeah.
at world domination. So it's global dominion, a global state.
Okay, so this is the local state versus the global state. Okay, yes, that makes perfect sense. So he goes through all this related to Wordsworth, Feuerbach, Walt Whitman, Kierkegaard, Tolstoy, James Bergeson, Thomas Mann, the Chicago Ethical Society, and you end up with spiritual humanism, which is, and I view it as an attempt to go back into Christianity, and religious socialism. But these are the related philosophies. So, I the point I want there's a couple of points I want to get across is that this tradition is ancient. And
Yes.
I sort of consider myself in this tradition, and
Yes.
I hadn't thought of it as as upper class Aryan preservation and lower class Semitic preservation and uh, state religion over here as the particular when these two are universals. So universal in particular. So
Which two?
Christianity and humanism, right, or the philosophy.
The Roman Catholicism, you mean?
Yes, and
Right. I think that that blue line in the middle is misplaced as
oh,
well.
I'm sorry, I got distracted by losing track of the titles. So I'm saying that these three really turn out to be lower class, middle class, and upper class Europeanism,
Oh, that makes sense.
right? And that that what we get into here is a tendency to mate with the state worship is the attempt to counter the universalism in them, and that led
Yes.
to the universalism here, right, in the communism. So,
Yes.
so when this time, the reason, so why did Kurt to take us on this freaking journey? When Brad started out with the problem of religion is solved, and I am stuck with weak. How do you solve it? Do you bring as who's the other one? Not Aquinas, but Augustine.
Augustine, yes.
As you tried to do with Augustine, do you bring the Greek into the Christian?
Well,
Or do you
right.
bring
So this interesting function, which I will attempt to heal the rift.
Okay.
The distinction. Augustine is on the list here, and he should be in this purple column with the Roman Catholicism.
Yes.
That's what I think, but I don't know. Is that factually true?
I'm almost certain. Right there.
He's in the group. There he is. Okay. So what we've done with our work is we have built an arc between Augustine, Aquinas, and healed the rift between the two, which is class-based. So we cross the classes. We solve for all the classes satisfactorily with the natural law and the integration of human nature into natural science. So we solved the problem that exists between these three class-based solutions.
Okay, if that's what you're saying, I would agree.
I know.
I just couldn't, I wasn't following you when you first started saying it. So yeah, I believe that we've said, you know, this Jesus guy, whether you consider him divine or a philosopher, solved a hard problem, which you call the end point of religion, which I agree. If religion is children, I don't want to say children's stories, but intuitionistically available. You have the philosophers, which is the humanistic side, solving it for the upper middle class and whatever, middle upper classes and upper classes. And we have sort of gone over here and we have said, we have solved the problem of politics, uniting them all. I think Protestant Christianity isn't really anything more than middle class, this. Lower
Yes.
class, middle class, and this is upper class. But I think you're right. We've united them under the same, basically, science, philosophy. The question is whether that unification can be tolerated by the people. In other words, will there be the demand for the dominance of the supernatural? Will there be the demand for the dominance of the philosophical? Or will there be the demand for the dominance of the scientific, our solution of the unification of the moral and the scientific? Even though we're saying, well, you know, we don't have to say by justification, we can say by the demonstrated evidence. Christianity, precisely because it's a lower class implementation of upper class Aryanism, right? So that the feminine, the intuitionistic, rather than the powerful and the competent can, in other words, it's accessible to them. So why is it that is there going to be a continued war between these fundamentalists and the philosophers and the scientists when that seems to be the issue? This class conflict is generating a demand for universalism, because universalism is a demand of Christianity, not of philosophy or the kind of work we do, which is the science. Universe doesn't.
Oh, I don't agree with that statement.
Okay,
Because
I'm
the
asking.
science is universalist.
Yeah, it says universalist, except that it says your priority must be the particular.
Well, it's like, so it's like we say, may 1,000 states bloom, right?
Yes,
and
exactly.
it's like everybody gets to try to do it their own way in their
Right.
own state,
Yeah.
and good luck, right? And that's how it works. And it's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And so the issue being, the truth will out.
The what? The truth will out.
Will out.
Yes.
So the most successful organizational structure will be the most successful organizational structure by demonstrating it.
Yes.
And everybody gets to place their bets.
And take responsibility for their bets.
That's it.
So, again, I agree with what we're doing. What I'm having a problem with is I admittedly have definitely got smart people disease. And I have in Anglo Enlightenment foolhardy optimism.
All right.
And I have proper Christian unhealthy optimism. And so, and I look at this and I'm like, man, if you've got fundamentalists that are a third of they're just going to undermine the goddamn thing from inside out, aren't they? If you've got people who want to, wait a minute, people want to manipulate the science. That's going to be the philosophical. They'll try to create deceptions and manipulations and prevarications and deceits, right?
Of course.
And then you'll have the people in the sciences who will try to undermine the sciences by saying, well, we can provide this mechanism. Of course, is intertemporal trade, but we can try to bait people into hazard by saying it's only a short-term thing, or in the future we'll overcome it, which is what the Marxists do. So
right.
Now tell me why I'm wrong.
You're right. And it's up to the law to prevent it.
Well, the hard problem God damn it, the hard problem I had was my original conclusion is you had to outlaw supernatural religion.
No.
Okay, well, you can't do that.
No.
Great. Then you have to outlaw religions that lie. Oh, fuck.
No.
You can't do that. Can you, however, say religions have to be compatible with natural law?
You can say that.
I think you can say that.
It just comes down to what local laws you would like to impose.
Well, I mean, our basic argument of the Constitution is you can do anything you want as long as you don't lie about it.
Right. That's right.
So I'm trying to make a big deal about, I'm trying to talk about the fact that you brought up this, well, religion, there's this guy is saying there's smart people working on religion. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I know I am, I know you are, right? And we are. I also recognize it's the hardest freaking problem we have. I mean, by comparison, all the political, economic, all the policy issues, they're easy compared to this one, right?
That's fair.
Laws easy to compare.
No, the issue is it's class-oriented integration, and how the classes integrate with one another in the polity is the question. And and there can be a wide variety of solutions offered in each state or between the states.
Mm-hmm.
And the best will win.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of think of it like this, is like you can make a state where the lower classes don't get to vote. And that's okay.
You can make a state that has to be fundamentalist Christian.
Yes, you can. And that's okay too.
That's okay too. However, you can't make a claim claim that would be counter to testifiability. you can just say, we require these things, but you can't say, make a false claim about it. That would be the hard part. And I can't imagine they care. They
Oh,
care.
no, so it's the issue will be is who's going to insure it, right? And so it's like this. It's like, yeah, we're just not going to insure that statement that you made in your state.
Okay. Okay, now,
Because it's counterparty risk and insurance. That's what counts in the formation of the state and the natural law.
and in interstate disputes, it's not, it doesn't hold up. In other words, if there's a dispute between people in your state and people in another, and they differ on this particular issue that's not insurable because it's not state.
Then it's the federation will take sides.
Well, it has to take sides on the law, right? I mean,
That's
it would
right.
say you've made a false promise here or a false claim, and so that's irrelevant for the matter under discussion. Now they can get all
Right. So we're going to discount that claim.
Yep, and I think that's relatively easy to do. I mean, do the same thing for the Marxists. They can't make all those claims they make. They're false, or the race Marxists, or the people who claim there's no, HBD is false, which is interesting. That whole the rate at which human biodiversity is coming in, and especially the issues of women are coming in. I mean, it's funny, Scott. I forget that Scott Adams and our writers, I don't want to mention our guys' names, they share the same editor, and I don't like the term ghostwriter because he's not really like, he's much more than that. But the guy, so there is a connection between Scott Adams and us, and I know this guy, but I know the guy that is this particular person is. So I mean, it's possible this is getting to Scott somehow. But for have him come out and say it pretty openly the other day was kind of impressive to me because he has huge reach and influence. And he works by the opposite way we do, which is he's a master of suggestion.
Yes.
Right. And so we are masters of anti-suggestion, right, of a declaration. And to see him get there and apply it in his method, I thought was quite wonderful. I mean, he's
That's
brilliant.
right.
He does. All right, can I close this thing now? Can I close this?
You like? I need a copy of that crazy chart.
Yeah, I think
I like it.
I have one other. He produced 3. Rand McNally published them.
What's the author's name again?
His name is Mr. Sparks, John B. Sparks.
Okay.
So his the map of religion. He's got 3 open with. He's got 3. I'm forgetting what the third one is. Religion. Religion, evolution, and history altogether, right?
Okay.
He did 3, and they're all this. And you can. It's funny. You can. They're like a collector's item.
Yeah.
You can actually go to. There's places that sell them.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, the theme is public domain. They give it away on his website.
Whoa, I like that one.
I was gonna say open. Close this one. Close this one.
I've seen that one before, I think.
There's a, he's been around, right? I mean, since the third. I mean, it's 100 years old, almost 100 years old.
How about that? How about that?
I have the horizontal one somewhere, which was an attempt to redo this.
Just a beast. Yeah, that's the one I've seen.
All right. And this goes from, unfortunately, it doesn't go back far enough. I would like it if it went back to 10,000 BC so that we could see the formation. Of course, we didn't know this back then. We could see the formation in the in the dry Persian Gulf and up into the, what do you call it? Up into the upper Mesopotamia, which is now Anatolia.
Right.
And we could see the different places begin. But he picks out in 2000 BC, and it's funny because I don't think you don't really think of it that way, but the amount of archaeological knowledge we have over the past 100 years has been significant, right? It's quite big. Of course, we have a whole bunch. We've just thrown legions of poorly paid, overworked, foolishly optimistic archaeology students at this problem as some
It's just
free self-funded labor.
it's human wave tactics.
It's just amazing. Like there's no chance you're going to actually do anything with this degree. But
That
I
was rude.
no, sorry. I watched Time. Is it Time something? Time. Anyway, there's a British show that's been on for decades that they do archaeology, and they basically get like 3 or 4 days to go.
Yes, I've seen this one.
Right. So I watch this all the time, and I'm like, dude, I would go do that. I would do that today.
Pretty cool.
I would go do that. I would volunteer to work on it. I know enough to be able to. I certainly know my pottery. So
See?
anyway, so this covers the Egyptian, I mean the history of civilizations, basically. And I think it's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when you get down into the whole Roman thing, that's pretty scary. I think that one of the just criticisms of this is it's got a focus that ignores Africa, it ignores
Right.
understates, and I think that's okay because at the time I don't think we had the knowledge that we
Well,
have
plus
today.
it becomes diminishing returns.
Yep. So, it's a pretty, there's
Right, go to the bottom, please. I want to look at the legend.
Latin America, United States, British Empire, continental.
Yeah, I'm even below that. I was looking at Rand McNally.
Yeah, so Rand McNally, I can't, of course they do maps, right? And that's
Yeah.
so they published these, and I know they were delivered folded. When I was a kid, National Geographic put out maps of all sorts of great shit. My father would get National Geographic, would get the maps, like the bottom of the ocean, and
Yes.
I just put that stuff up on my wall. I love that stuff.
Oh yeah, me too. We did the same thing.
Because we were both proper nerds. All right. So does anything else I wanted? Like the China, I mean, China is way under. I mean, this is about right. But I don't know, maybe I'm overly sensitive to the fact that I would like to see it more equilibrated, because if you look at the populations, China's pretty big.
Right.
And I think what they're doing here is actually talking more about territories, right, and control than they are about populations. So that probably makes sense. All right, did I cover that?
Very well covered.
All right. So in our where am I? Do I need to? Okay, I can keep talking to you from over here, right? So in our coverage of this religious issue, where did we get to? I mean, did we get
don't need to share screens.
Thank you.
So
continuation of the previous recording. Now we gotta link the two together and wait for it to render.
build a segue. Right. There you go.
All right. So in this discussion, which you started out with your usual insight, did we get anywhere? Because in other words, you say the problem what I thought I heard you say in the beginning was, well, no, religion is solved.
Religion is solved. But the issue is there's a failure, the improper splintering that occurred at the in the Enlightenment age, even probably at the Protestant Reformation. The splintering that occurred among the Christians has yet to be healed, and we have solved the problem between the classes with religion and science, and we've provided a solution for those people to solve the problems in the way they prefer across a multitude of states. So we're creating an avenue to release the pressure that exists to try to enforce everyone's will on everyone else, regardless of their preferences.
Yeah, I think that's an argument to the good, right? And I'm not sure that I'm agreeing with you. I'm going to go over and say, okay, are Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, or Buddhism as originally conceived religions, is Stoicism, which is really the culmination of Greek thought, but I'll put it as Stoicism, Epicureanism, Stoicism, and Aristotelian, Platonism, and Aristotelianism, is that a religion? And because they serve the same purposes. And why is, if we get to Hinduism, is that really religion, or do we just call it religion because it's closer to religion than philosophy? Or because they just call it as the way, right? They call it the way. Whereas in the Abrahamic religions, it's a religion, and in a lot of supernatural religion, it's clearly religion. But is our understanding of religion wrong?
No.
Are we looking at the saying, can we solve the problem of religion through a lens that's falsely positioning? Because we know what religion does. I mean, this is why I work so hard to science it. It's just overcoming alienation by providing, suppressing of, finding vehicles for limiting and suppressing aggression. There's implementing non-aggression and reducing frictions that arise from differences in perceptions, goals, morals, patterns, values, and whatever. So it's creating a standard of weights and measures and behavior that suppress anxiety, right? And especially anxiety that increases as alienation increases, the size of populations cooperating in political and trade orders increases. So, I mean, it's a necessary function. The suppression of alienation, suppression of neuroticism, suppression of anxiety and stress. It's a necessary function. But it's not clear that supernaturalism it makes any difference. No, it's not clear at all.
I would argue that it doesn't matter.
It does or doesn't.
The only thing that matters is to program the intuitions for social integration. To allow the society to exist in a cooperative fashion on an ongoing basis.
So the problem is, what's the vehicle for doing that produces minimum, well, you would call it variation is the wrong word, minimum change in direction that becomes destructive. In other words, there's I'm trying to think of the term I'm looking for. Deviation is the best one I could say, where it maintains its purpose but doesn't deviate. In Buddhism, it starts out as a philosophy, but then they added all the supernatural crap onto it to make it yummy for people, right? But it was purely philosophical in the beginning. So Buddhism as a religion, it's not even practiced as a religion, it's practiced as a discipline, right? But the narrative that excuses it or is sold or that justifies it is kind of silly, really. The narrative that justifies the Abrahamic religion is kind of absurd, but it works for us, right? I mean, it works. It functions enough. You know, I understand that the objection that Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism are class structures. I understand that the Greek method of Stoicism, or you would think of what's above Stoicism, is Stoicism, Epicureanism, and now Epicureans are class structure, and then Christianity is the lower class. I understand that these are class structures, and that's because classes have different needs, right? It's not like, right, it's just, and you know, so I understand these things. But when I look at the future, I'm like, well, we've produced this thing, right? We've said it can serve as a class structure, either as a science, a philosophy, or as a religion. We've said that furthermore, if you have the Christian religion, since it's compatible with natural law, I mean, because it basically arose out of this Semitic teaching of the Aryan ethics to lower class people and women. I can understand that it's causal. Is this supernatural thing necessary? Well, you think not, right? You say it's not really necessary.
It's sufficient, however,
right?
And it's like it may be necessary in the absence of any alternative.
Right. The other thing is that it provides the Christian method, or the Abrahamic religious context does provide social means of reinforcement. Like, we don't think of, I mean, one of the things I thought Nietzsche was most insightful for is that the Greeks used the play as church, right?
Yes.
And they use the forum basically as church every day.
Yes.
And so these things provide social reinforcement. And that's what people need. They need external, the more feminine you are, the more you need external reinforcement. I mean, in some cases, I mean, the female mind needs external instruction because it's so needing of adaptation. So are we right that the natural law is enough? In other words, secular humanism, philosophical, and so I would consider my work, my approach to the world's sort of secular humanism, which is very Greek. I would consider it Christianity as a very humanistic religion, probably the most humanistic religion. But it's not secular; it's theological. Is it possible to make this all work together? Is it possible?
I'd say it's necessary. And I will say this because it goes like this: is the issue is if we were looking at that chart, which we're not, the class structures are demonstrated in that chart. Okay, and the issue is the institutions that build the society have to cross the class structures and have elites running them. But they have to be informed by stories that are built to the level of the population that they can absorb. And so it's like, they're not going to have a nerdy elite telling everybody how things are working without the stories. And the stories are pre-existing and they already are accepted. And they are recognizably ethical in their content. Mm-hmm. So it's like that those stories are necessary. And those means of transmission of information to inform the intuitions of everybody cannot come from the elite, scientific only. So you have to build the logics, languages, and grammars have to match the classes.
Unless you drag everybody to the bottom, Islam, it has to be what you're saying. Because it's clear that, you know, I mean, I mean, the only people that have really gotten around this, are the Japanese. They have ancestor worship and they have some tepid part of Buddhism in there, which really is, you know, is questionable religion. I mean, the Chinese make fun of us for our religion because they think it's childlike, right? It's stupid. The only people who've gotten away are the Japanese. And everywhere that Islam touches dies. It's fucking cancer. But everywhere that Christianity teaches appears to work. And the poorer you are, the lower off you are on the spectrum, the better it works, which is fascinating to me. Now you take evangelical Christianity and put it in sub-Saharan Africa, and it fucking works like magic. And they make it their own way. It's certainly not Catholicism. It certainly is evangelical, jumping up and down, hoo-ha, singing, chanting Christianity. But I mean, it works like crazy. It works everywhere we take it. So Islam destroys everywhere they take it. They call it working, and I'm like, only if destroying civilization is and knowledge and understanding and progress is good for you. Christianity does not seem to be resistant to science and technology, as long as you know, other than evolution. So we ended it. Did we get this one?
I think so, but you have to integrate the two videos now.
Yeah, let's just let them render, put them together inside of the freaking software and have them go. I can't believe there isn't a decent service on YouTube that allows you to do that. You can make clips on YouTube, but you can't just throw two things up there or three things up there. At least last I knew you can't. And have it tie them together. So every time I screw up, basically means I just added 2 hours of rendering time and burying my computer to make it happen. Thankfully, I have my other laptop I can throw it in. All right, so you're giving me that look of shut this thing up, I think.
Oh no, that's not what I'm giving you. I'm
Okay,
giving you the signal. It's time for me to say, hey, hit like, hit subscribe. Don't forget the notification button, and then tell us how well we did this great conversation and how well Kurt rendered everything together.
All right. Are we stopping? What are we doing?
We'll stop talking about this one. Let's close this one up and have a conversation off camera.
Okay.